Welcome to the YCNU podcast. Join us each week for engaging conversations with campus leaders, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members. From academics to athletics, campus life, and beyond, we cover it all. Have someone you want to hear from? Let us know. Let's explore the world of Yavapai College together.
Hello and welcome to the YCNU podcast. I'm Mike Grady, sitting in for Kadu Medina this week. What is peace? Everybody's talking about peace in the abstract, and everybody's for it. But you only have to look at the headlines or our social discourse or open up your phone to see that we need a better embrace of peaceful principles as a nation, as a world, and as people too. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the Yavapai College Peace Summit coming up April 3rd and 4th on Yavapai College's Prescott campus. And here today to talk in studio, we have two architects of the Peace Summit, Dr. Brandelyn Andres, professor of art history at Yavapai College and chair of YC's Respect campaign, and Chief Jerald Monahan, former chief of police of Apache Junction, Prescott, and Yavapai College, who leads YC's Administration of Justice program and founded YC's Justice Institute. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Tell us a little bit. I want to get into the subject of peace and how something so comprehensive became so important to each of you individually. But first, I want to talk about the event itself. So the event is April 3rd and 4th on the Prescott campus, and you're going to be examining peace from a number of standpoints, from civil discourse, from problem solving, wellness. And you're doing that. It's not just a sit down and hear lectures thing, although there are discussions. Tell us about the different events you have planned and what will happen over those 2 days.
We imagine the Peace Summit is like a symposium. And so we wanted to bring together different constituencies, students, faculty, community members, each person with a unique perspective to talk about peace from their own standpoint. So it's basically a collection of sessions, and people are encouraged to attend how they want. They can attend the entire summit, or they can come and go with summit or sessions that meet their own schedule or their own personal interests. We also have a panel discussion that'll be the evening of April 3rd at 6 p.m., where we can have a more dynamic conversation. And then we also will have an art exhibit that will be displayed in the space also.
Great. And that's an important point, I think, too, that this isn't something, it starts at 9 each day. And you can move in and out of it or cherry pick topics if you want. I think we'll have something on the website about the roster and everything. Chief Monahan, tell us about what you're especially excited about in terms of guest speakers and how this is being approached.
Well, one of the things about our panels is it involves a number of faculty, other of our colleagues here on the campus, and they each bring a unique perspective, we believe, to the Peace Summit and to the work that they do. Peace for all of us can be different things. And I think Dr. Andres and I have represented that in the faculty that we've brought together to do the 2 days. The panel will be of interest. We have a student that'll be on the panel to talk to us about her experiences and her lifestyle and how does that contribute to her ability to influence peace in general. Chief Payne will be one of our panelists, Meredith Dunlap from the National Bank in Prescott Valley. And if you follow her posts on LinkedIn, she's always posting messages of hope and kindness and peace. And, we believe out of that panel will be some individual stories about how an individual influences their sphere to create a more peaceful, civil, respectful world.
There's a lot of variety in who you have as guest panelists and guest speakers. There's even some artists as well. Brandelyn, could you tell us a little bit about Rita and Meg Borman and some of the folks who will approach it from an artistic standpoint.
Yeah, one of the exciting things about this idea of artistic expression is we're not limiting it solely to visual expression. Certainly that'll be a component. We'll have artworks displayed, but we're also going to be looking at multimedia installation, which is more in line with Rita's work. She has an interactive piece that has to do with human trafficking. Then Meg Borman, she is focused on song and dance, as well as Mary Heller. So this idea that peace can be expressed and articulated through a variety of creative mediums, I think will really help people to fully understand what peace means to them on a personal level.
Right. As you talk, I seem to recall that there's a spiritual song that says, "Let peace begin with me." And this speaks to that. It seems to speak at personal and professional and societal levels, does it not?
Yes. And, you said something that really struck me a few minutes ago about the idea that peace is abstract. And, we really hope to concretize that with this summit, where you yourself can formulate your own definition of what peace means to you through the process of thinking and talking and asking questions and experiencing as you participate in the summit. And I think that once someone has their own personal definition of peace, it's much more easier to enact that.
So it starts personally. It doesn't start from, talking back to the television, when you see things going on in the news, it begins with an inward approach and you hope by example that extends outward.
I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you both talk about, this isn't your first exploration of peace as a concept or as a societal tool. Can you talk a little bit about how this has evolved from last year? I think what we were talking, it was an International Day of Peace, and now it's a multi-day event that seems to go in a bunch of very compelling directions. How has it grown? How did that get traction?
Yeah, well, for me, just being involved with the Respect campaign that Brandelyn has chaired since 2016, there's so many aspects of how respect and civility can be co-produced and how it can grow. Brandelyn and I, last year, we hosted the Northern Arizona Thriving Families Conference. We are both certified trainers with Prevent Child Abuse Arizona. But the idea was, if our families are strong and children are growing emotionally strong and developing according to their appropriate age levels, they're going to be much more well and much more able to adapt into a society that we all know sometimes seems to thrive on conflict. So that's one of our goals. We've both experienced that training. We've been able to bring it to the college and to the greater community through these different events, with the Respect Campaign hosting or the Justice Institute or both of us hosting together. Brandelyn serves on the advisory committee for the Justice Institute, and I'm a member of the Respect Campaign. So that has kind of kept us in close communication. And these projects just, Brandelyn just doesn't let grass grow under her feet. And she's always pulling me into something.
I feel like that's the other way around, but that's a conversation for later, I guess.
Well, that's very interesting, because one of the most compelling things about studying this is that, you're an artist and an art history professor. You've had 4 decades in law enforcement. Very different paths to the same concept. So could each of you talk a little bit about why this is important to you and what brought you to the point where you want to be peace advocates?
Well, as Jerald said, the Respect campaign started in 2016. And really, my focus on peace has kind of always been there with the advent of this campaign. We focus on things like dialogue and mutuality and treating one another with, empathy and kindness and respect. And to me, those are all peace principles anyway. So, I've been doing this all along, and it just seems to have kind of coalesced. The other thing is I'm an art historian and I'm an educator. So we talk about art. Art is creation, it's expression, it's dialogue, it's capturing lived experience. And so in many ways, those things all very neatly dovetail with peace. In many ways, art is, a peace practice. And then I think also, part of this was in working with Jerald, we began to undertake a peace educator curriculum through the HWPL, which is an international peace organization. And what that helped me to realize is, as an educator in general, despite my discipline, is I think it's important to teach our students peace skills. I don't think that peace is just this magical, rainbow in the sky, but we do have to kind of understand how peace is generated and develop strategies and how we can help to promote it.
Right. It's funny. I always thought at a glance that peace was just the absence of something. It's the absence of fighting. It's the absence of arguing or conflict or things like that. And through the promotion of some of your programs in the past, when I've had to study this, there's strategies to it, there's art to it, there's discipline to it, and it's not just a cipher. It's not just a behavioral cipher. I really want to hear, Chief Monahan, how as a law enforcement officer you came to this contact point.
Yeah, I suppose in its just kind of in the basic approach was this idea that, if a community is at peace, then that is a form of crime prevention, right? In other words, it's the same thing with the Yavapai Reentry Project. If we help individuals reintegrate into the community from prison, for me as a police chief, that means they're not going to commit any more crimes. They're going to be successful. Well, it's the same thing with peace. If our society functions as a peaceful community of individuals, each practicing that peaceful influence that they can bring to the table, we will see less conflict. And for me, conflict is where violent crime grows from, hatred grows from, misunderstandings. One of the loveliest things I've learned from Brandelyn is how art can communicate. We can communicate with one another through all these different forms. And so that's why we have such a variety, I think, in the Peace Summit that we're approaching. But again, for me, it gets back just to that individual effort to create a more peaceful, nonviolent society. There's a colleague that Brandelyn and I both work with, and he'll be at the Peace Summit, Bobby Kipper. He'll be speaking on the science of kindness. But he has a quote that says, "Violence is a process, but we can interrupt the process of violence. It's not an event, it's a process." And that's what, in a big way, what Brandelyn and I hope to accomplish.
It's interesting to hear both of you talk, because I've done a lot of work in the healthcare field, and I hear you talk about peace the same way folks talk about wellness, whereas it's an organic, it's an overall condition that you cultivate that is preventative. It may not dramatically stop anything, but it prevents a lot of negatives from happening, and it's interesting. Yeah.
This is connected in some ways to the college's efforts at the outward mindset, where we're willing to, on purpose, understand somebody else's point of view and try to understand their worldview. Where are they coming from? And then turn the chair around to engage in the conversation. Conversation and communication prevents misunderstanding. And so I've always admired that when the college brought the outward mindset here, for me, I thought that was such a wonderful move.
I think so. And the thing about the outward mindset is it requires a step from you, because everybody has this mentality that I'm ready for peace as soon as all these other folks will be peaceful.
Yeah. Michael, you mean it's not all about me?
Yeah. It's stunning, isn't it? It's just, and yeah, it requires giving past your comfort zone from all sides of it. And I don't think people realize that until they look at a concept like this in depth.
Yeah.
So, so you came to this through the Respect campaign. Tell us a little bit about that, the genesis of the Respect campaign, and where that started, and how this embraces that mission.
So the Respect campaign began in 2016 after the election of President Trump the first time around. Somebody inscribed in one of the elevators in Building 3 white power and a swastika. And our president at the time, who was Dr. Wills, was very adamant that that was not reflective of Yavapai College culture. And so she wanted a campaign to be established that would really try to affect the culture here. And so it started out with me and a colleague of mine, Dr. Mark Shelley, who was our sociology professor. He's since retired. And when he retired, then we expanded the campaign to be more group-based rather than just two people. And we invited faculty, staff, administrators, community members, students to start to get involved. And what we basically do is we orchestrate various programs that encourage people to come together to promote the values that I had mentioned earlier, respect and dialogue and that sort of thing. And so it fits well with the Peace Summit because we're kind of enacting a lot of those values throughout the 2 days of sessions.
And it's proactive. It's interesting. It started with a negative event because I remember when that happened. But it's putting positive messages, countering that with positive messages, and putting those back in the zone to take up more space and take up more oxygen and give people something else to look to and contemplate. What about Chief, the Justice Institute? Tell us a little bit about founding that and where that came from.
I was still working at the police department on campus when the idea for the Justice Institute was born. Chief Payne and I talked about the impact that the killing of George Floyd had on the whole country. But on, Ty as an African-American man, myself as a police professional, that was such a brazen, calloused act by that one officer in that event. So we thought about, okay, we both wrote a letter, a statement, just to release the emotion. But at the same time, what more proactive could we do? So the Justice Institute was formed around different pillars, community policing, the idea that we have to connect to the community in a more positive way. Reentry, how do we support everybody in our society, even the ones that have gotten off track? How do we as a government or as an institution or as a police agency, what role can we play in helping people get back on track? And so as we look for activities to promote that, and we've offered a number of trainings on campus where, thanks to Jerry, he built my website and he does the online registration. So we've done a number of those programs, but it just fits so nicely into what was being discussed at the Respect campaign meetings and how the two just really married well with the goals, the overall arch-reaching goals. So the Justice Institute is alive and well. And we hope to influence criminal justice agencies through the work that we do. That's one of the ways we got involved with the Police to Peace nonprofit. We saw this could be a way to promote positive police reform without a way of demonizing the police, but acknowledging that some reform needs to happen. And so that's a big part of what we do in addition to partnering with the Respect campaign.
It's great. Again, there's a lot of proactivity there. So it isn't just something happens and we hope it goes away. Yeah, there has to be active, tangible response in from these groups. And I imagine that the Peace Summit is an idea is designed to draw the community into that participation mode. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we talked a lot about personal definitions of peace, but peace is also participatory. We have to work with one another in order to, achieve that. And I really liked what you had said earlier about this idea that it might be a kind of uncomfortable process. And that might surprise people about peace because we have this idea that, it should be seamless and, just kind of, like I said, magically existing. But it's a process, like you say, and it's one that's active, that you have to be involved in it. And so this idea that we come together to create this environment that's peaceful, it does require participation. You can't just have one person doing all of the work. It won't work.
Now, in terms of who you hope to see at the summit, this is not just a Yavapai College thing. You want attendance and buy-in and participation from the whole Quad Cities, do you not?
Well, I mean, we really want our students to come first and foremost. Okay. And that was kind of the genesis too. I was thinking of something that we could offer for our students along the lines, again, of helping them to, formulate their own worldviews surrounding peace. But then, I think part of that is, though, our students engaging with the community. And so we did decide that we did want to open it up and encourage, other people to attend, people that our students hopefully will be interacting with as they move about the various spaces around town.
Yeah, we very much want to stay aligned with the college's mission of student success. And so the students are first and foremost in our minds on almost every project we come up with. But in my division, which is workforce in the county, other things that we're doing, we hope to attract individuals to Yavapai College to pursue their educational goals, and for me, to pursue careers in the criminal justice community. One of the things we've created is a victim advocacy certificate. Criminal justice careers are not just limited to police officer and deputy sheriff. There are so many other aspects of the criminal justice world, and everything we do, in my mind and hope, it attracts those to come here, get that educational foundation, and then go out and be the next generation of criminal justice employees.
I think this is great because this is item one when you get to what does a college contribute to its community. You want a place where ideas, big, ambitious, sprawling ideas are discussed and smaller details can be examined. And it sounds like from last year to this and for that interest in this sort of thing is growing. Would you say that it is? Would you say that there's a good level of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that there's a growing level of interest. I think as educators, we have the responsibility not just to teach our students about our discipline or to teach them skills that they'll use at their job, but we need to teach them how to be good people and how to participate in a community. And I think that the Peace Summit will help, as I said, to build these skills that will make them better coworkers, better community members, better friends, better parents, romantic partners, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think also with how challenging our world has become in so many different ways, yeah. I think people are crying out for a respite. And I think peace offers that. And so I think that helps to renew that interest.
Yeah. It's funny. It's not a hard sell to say we need more peace on every frontier of our lives these days. And everybody's got an opinion, social, political, personal, or whatever about it. But the thing that seems universal is the despair over the separateness. Yeah. And this seems like a place where you can address that, where you can see like-minded people, maybe not of particular opinions, but in the spirit of a more civil discourse or of a better way of relating to each other, gathering, and you can maybe hash some ideas out. Is that one of the big takeaways you want from the Peace Summit?
Well, it certainly would be for both of us, I'm sure. We want the folks that come to the Peace Summit to understand that they have a role to play, that they have a sphere of influence, and they have a voice in this. They have an investment in this. But that doesn't mean that somebody that may have a differing opinion than an individual isn't just as invested. You know, there's a saying that just because it's different doesn't mean that it's wrong. And as we can come together and understand that we see the world from all these different lenses, that's why Brandelyn was able to put together such a number of different speakers and presenters, that it's going to be like this huge collage of ideas that are going to come out of the Peace Summit. And you mentioned the uncomfortable conversations at our International Peace Day event. We had some individuals show up that were very angry. October 7th had just occurred.
Oh, that's right.
And so individuals wanted to see the discussion that was taking place follow their opinion, follow their thinking, follow their anger. And that wasn't what that event was about. But at the same time, we recognize that what happened on October 7th for those individuals was deeply impactful. And they weren't at that time prepared to hear anything different than what they wanted to hear. That's okay, because we lived through it. We understand where they're coming from, and we move on. The Peace Summit may well have folks show up that disagree with some of the presentations. That's okay. That's
right.
Okay.
It's about how to disagree and how to sort that out more than individual topics, isn't it?
Well, and with the social media and like in policing, so many events are captured now on social media that create an emotional reaction. Mm-hmm. And what we understand about an emotional reaction is the rational brain is basically hijacked. So until the emotions calm down, rational interaction and communication may not be able to take place. And I think as long as we understand that, we can get past that initial emotional separation. But in some ways, social media has amplified that because of its quick ability to put something out there. And we in law enforcement have faced that constantly because only a part of the story gets told and it's thrown out of context.
Right.
But it also has value because what happened to George Floyd was caught on camera and it was clear what was happening to him.
Right. There was an immediacy to it.
So it told the truth in that instance, but there are other instances where the story is not necessarily factual, and yet society reacts to that.
There's so much to sift through these days, especially with social media amplifying things. And you're so right about things appealing to the emotions first. It's like reason comes late to the party. And there have to be strategies for bringing that in, or you're just going to be two parties shouting at one another. What do you hope folks take away from the event? You have a number of different ways to articulate what peace is and what peaceful approaches are. What would you like folks coming home with?
So I just want to say really quick, My gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, let me answer your question, then maybe I think train of thought. No, I know what I was going to say now.
There's a lot of,
You were talking about the idea of strategies, and I just want to talk about this idea of gathering, and that is the strategy. So Jerald mentions, social media, and there's so much of our communication that's mediated through technology. And so by us just simply gathering, I think that we can combat some of that separateness because you're not sitting in your echo chamber. Social media has algorithms that operate to incite emotional response. You're not being victimized by that. You have to look at someone's face. They're not like a username or, a photo or whatever. You have to interact with somebody in person. And I think that those kind of things where we just get together as people and not, names on a screen, that we can really engage with one another. I hope that people take away the idea that peace is an active process, that, they understand that peace isn't just like kumbaya, but, peace is embedded in so many of our institutions, the way that our economics function, our politics, our society, our culture, even the way that we treat our environment. Affects a sense of peace. And one thing that I learned in my protective factors training that Jerald had mentioned, he and I both went through, they have this saying of small but significant actions, and that you don't have to qualify for the Nobel Peace Prize to affect peace, but even something as small as smiling at someone or giving them a compliment. You can do something so minor, and that might be a seed that grows into a beautiful tree.
Right. I love that. Small but significant actions. And one of them is attending the Peace Summit.
Yes.
April 3rd and 4th. I want to get all the logistics and your contact information. So if people want to know more, or if they want to look at the roster of speakers and when they can come in. So it is Thursday, April 3rd and Friday, April 4th. At the Yavapai College Prescott campus. The session, is it all in the community room?
Yes, Building 19, 147.
Right. Building 19, and it's starting at 9 a.m. on both days. But as Brandelyn, as you said earlier, you can come and go. You can see you can pick and choose from the menu. And for more information, can they contact either or both of you?
Absolutely. Either or both. We would love to hear from anybody who has questions, comments, concerns. That would be great.
And let me give them your email addresses. Brandelyn Andres, BRANDELYN ANDRES at YCEDU. And Jerald Monahan, I've made this mistake so many times spelling it with a G, JERLD.MONAHAN at YC.EDU. It's been a pleasure talking to both of you today. Thank you so much for coming and giving voice to this really worthy project. And I hope everybody turns out and gathers.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the YCNU podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got someone in mind for our next chat? Reach out and let us know. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.